Hazard peeps. You guys can tell I'm in the chair. You know what that means. It's time for another episode of FFA, Film Fanatics Anonymous, our episode 2. We have this comment right here, boom. Congratulations, this week I chose to watch your recommendation. Don't worry, darling. Don't worry, darling. If you are new to FFA, this is my in-depth review of movies where each week I choose a comment from you guys with various recommendations. I watch a movie that I've never watched before and I rate it on 3 separate categories. Acting, story, general story, and cinematography for an overall rating out of 30. Each category's rated out of 10 for an overall rating out of 30. So this week, I sat down and I watched this movie, Don't Worry, Darling. Starring Miss Pugh herself, who I happen to think very highly of. This is a psychological thriller, I would say. Very, very cool storyline. Very, very cool film. I liked it a lot. And I'm going to try my best to talk about this without spoiling anything. Because I recommend you guys watch this movie. I definitely would recommend it. It's going to be very difficult to talk about this without spoiling anything. So if as I'm reflecting on this movie, making this video, if I happen to have to talk about something that might be spoilers, I will put up a big old spoiler warning, okay? So I'll give you guys ample opportunity to click off of the video to skip ahead to spoiling content. I'll let you guys know in advance. So this film is set in this utopian world where it appears to be very turn of the century setting, where, you know, all the men, manly men, go out and work during the day, and the woman cooks, cleans, look after the kids, right? Greets them when they come back home with, you know, a cocktail and their body, right? Typical patriarchal society. But there are some, twists and turns along the way. The main character, Miss Florence Pugh, begins having these visions and everything's not as it seems, and so she goes on this kind of journey of discovery to figure out what's really going on in this utopian patriarchal society. And that's all I'm going to say about it. So let's start with category 1, acting. So this stars Florence Pugh, co-star with Harry Styles, who I don't like. Got Chris Pine in it, Olivia Wilde is in it, all across the board. Great acting. I mean, Florence Pugh I think very highly of, as I said. She did a fantastic job in this movie. Really couldn't see anybody else doing it. She took it to some very dark places when it needed to be, some very bright, happy places when it needed to be. I think this was a really good film to showcase her range. There are very romantic, very happy day scenes with her husband, where you get that really naturalistic kind of existence of a happy wife through her performance. And then as she's going on this journey and she starts uncovering things about this world that they live in, things get very crazy, and she can do very dark, very traumatized. You know, she finds out things that you can tell she's physically sickened by, and it all kind of builds up to the end where she physically is on the ground, in pain and contorted almost at what she's uncovered. Very, very powerful performance. Harry Styles, honestly, I don't like Harry Styles. I never have. It's the first thing I've really seen him in. And it's a big reason why I never watched this from the start, because Cass has been begging me to watch this for a long time. So it's funny that we've got this comment. He did fine. He did fine. I mean, you know, he didn't do anything to write home about, but I had no complaints. You know, it wasn't anything special. I was surprised by it being Harry Styles. No complaints. Florence Pugh carried it. Obviously, it's her movie. She's the main lead of it. Olivia Wilde, very impressive job in this, I will say. She plays one of the wives, one of these utopian wives, and then when you find out her motive and like her reason being there, her whole performance makes sense. Like, there was nothing really special about it until you find out, you know, her determination, her character's strife, and you're like, okay, it all makes sense. And the moment she explains it, very powerful stuff. Very, very powerful stuff. Almost a very two-faced character, which is kind of difficult to do. Very impressive. And Chris Pine is, I guess, one of the baddies, so to speak, which is obvious from the get-go, you know, obvious from the beginning. So that's not giving too much away. He did a great job too. I don't think it was a very... as a tractor. I don't think it was a very, like, challenging role for him. I think he's great. I don't think it was a very challenging role for him as well. So, I mean, you know, again, nothing too crazy to write home about. You know, like if I'm talking about Chris Pine, that's not the movie I would talk about. Overall, this is difficult, right? I want to give it a high score for acting. I really do. And I guess it depends if we're talking about Florence Pugh. I would honestly give, you know, high 9s out of 10, right? When we're talking about the movie as a whole, I guess I would give it like a 7. If we were talking about just Florence Pugh, high 9s. Really, which most majority of the film is her and her interactions with people, or her on her own. So, I mean, take that what you will, but we have to be harsh and realistic. We are rating this movie as a whole, so I am going to give acting a 7 out of 10, which is still a very high score. Moving on to the story. The story was really cool. You know, I already explained what it was about as much as I can. There's a big twist at the end. It's very Shutter Island-esque, with the flips of perception being a psychological thriller. I just did a capsule review on Shutter Island. If you guys are interested, you guys can go check out the playlist and check out the channel. Look at this ray of hope, this ray of sunshine. We love it. It's been raining all day. Raining. Story was great. I think it's definitely got a message. I don't think the message is very powerful and very kept like throughout. Definitely makes you think a certain way, but kind of just reinforces a particular belief that is pretty well instilled into our society today, and just like the reality of the world that we live in, with, you know, like gender roles and gender equality and everything. I know obviously there are still certain places and there's still some strife with that, but I would say, you know, it covers a lot that's pretty well accepted already. So I'd say, you know, when we talk about art leaving you changed, I would say this is more a movie just about entertainment and enjoyment. I don't think that I particularly came away overly impacted by the movie, other than by Florence Pugh's actual performance, which I liked a lot. There was nothing wrong with the story. I think, you know, I like, as an artist myself, I'm just looking for a more impactful change. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with the story at all. I didn't find any loopholes. I thought, me and Cassie were actually talking about it. The little hints throughout to like big up the ending twist and stuff, I actually think came at a very appropriate pace and in appropriate magnitudes, right? You know, like, they dropped hints, not too much, not too little, right from the start. Great pacing of the story. It was maybe a little bit on the longer side for what it was. There was a little bit there where it got a little bit repetitive and dragged before the conclusion, I would say. But again, overall, nothing wrong with the story. I would give it a 6 out of 10. There you go. And third and finally, the cinematography was actually very, very impressive. Very, very cinematographic, whatever the word would be. I really liked the themes, the motifs. This movie actually did something really cool with dance and movement, and the music was exceptional too. The supporting music was amazing, and I haven't really seen a movie that has really done something like this with dance before. There's this motif of symmetry and like falling in line and just being, you know, like the ideal mirror of like, you know, the ideal wife and stuff, which they showed through all of the wives doing ballet dances. And so there's all this this dance movement, and there's constant clips of dancing women, and in perfect symmetry, synchrony, you know, almost like it was synchronized swimming from above, from a sky view. So you see all these shapes that's made through dance. It was very, very cool. And if you guys check out our podcast, you know, me and the Bays here at Poet Warriors, dance is a great medium, and music as well, and should be used in art a lot more than it is. And I haven't really seen a movie that uses movement and dance to quite this degree before. I mean, it was one of the things that I said right from the beginning, and just the way that they filmed the dance as well, the cinematography of the dances. I said it right from the beginning to Cass, and she said, oh yeah, well, you know, there's you haven't seen Black Swan then. I said, I have seen Black Swan. I mean, that's just a completely different thing, you know, like when dance is used because the movie needs to facilitate it in that way, you know, it's a movie about Black Swan, it's a movie about ballerinas, right? It's obviously not the whole point, but there's got to be specific ballet movements in it, you know. This movie had nothing to do with dance. It used it as a catalyst to support some very real, very cool motifs. And I would say it comes under cinematography, the way at which they filmed it from above, and you saw all these shapes. It was very, very cool. They live out in the desert, but then they're kind of like in an oasis surrounded by a desert, so that's very cool. The environment is very cool. Very interesting choices. There's a lot of, you know, like I said, she starts seeing things, these visions, having these experiences. They're done in a very, very cool way. They're filmed very, very wild. I would give cinematography a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed the cinematography on this. So, there you have it. We've got, what, a 7 for acting overall. I wish I could give it a 9, but a 7 overall. We gave it a 6 for the story, and we gave it a 9 for cinematography. So here is your overall score out of 30. Boom. Impressive. There you have it. There you have it. Don't worry, darling. I enjoyed it. It was a very entertaining movie. I would recommend it. Go check it out.
Tasty.